you so much. Very interesting presentation. Yes, let me introduce Mr. JC. He has been doing a lot of work in the past as a designer, manufacturer, quality assurance, IT business assessment. And 2 years ago, he founded a company called AccuZen. AccuZen, yes. And this company has a mission to enable people with intelligence to thrive in a world that is volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And a very good afternoon to all of you. Well, I'm not going to go over this topic of AI with examples. We all know that it's a nice umbrella word under which there are many things that are possible, and I think a lot of examples have already been cited. We've seen examples in the area of machine learning. You can talk about natural language processing, image recognition, etc., etc. It's really limited by, I would say, our ability and human imagination. I think there's many things that can be done with AI, and I think we all recognize this. But having said that, and we spoke about personalization, we spoke about adaptive learning. I did some time back a course in Coursera, and Coursera now tells me what I should be doing next. It tells me that, I've done this course, therefore I might like some other course, therefore I might like some other course, which is great. But then if this is what is going to be happening to all of us, is there a risk that what Coursera is trying to do is try to produce mass robots? Are we trying to make all of us go to the same direction, to the same destination? Another example, I did a purchase on Amazon some time back. But then, based on my recent activity, as somebody said, I'm also being studied, as you said. The next thing which came was, you might call this personalization, but then I got this recommendation to go and read the other books, which were kind of this. You may call this personalization, but I also call this as manipulation. Because you're trying to tell me what I should buy. Why is that? Because maybe I don't want to read any of these books. Maybe I read that particular book on a particular startup, but that's not what I want to do next. Because I want to get my new ideas by going maybe to a library and seeking a book on a completely different topic, which is unrelated to what I did before. Because I don't get my ideas by reading the same, more of the same. I have other ways to get it. I might want to just go and spend some time in nature and get my new ideas and get some new learnings. Why should I follow the same pathway that somebody else has? Because the AI algorithm tells that's the pathway that has been taken by somebody in the past. And that's where I think we need to be very clear about using it judiciously, because I think we also need, in the era of artificial intelligence, we also need to have that creative thinking and that ability for that light bulb to go off, and you need those ideas. And if you are going to be told what you need to do every step, I suspect or I fear that we may lose that creative thinking that's innate as every human being. And that's where I like to say this. When we have AI, and we know that AI is really reaching new heights, but correspondingly, I think what's happening is we also probably have a situation where HD is going down. And what's HD? I call it human dumbness. And I say this with a purpose. I say this with a purpose because I have 2 daughters. I remember the telephone number of my elder daughter, but I don't remember the telephone number of my younger daughter. If I need to call her, I just go and click her name there and make that call. Because obviously she's younger, because that was the time when I felt I don't need to remember all these things. I mean, my ability to remember things has gone down dramatically. I don't know about you guys, but at least for me, I don't remember many things today. In other words, I'm not able to form that mental connection between what I know and what I need to know at that point of time, and those memory links, those chains are really breaking down. And even when I want to go from point A to point B, maybe places that I've been to in the past, I'm not confident anymore of going without putting on my Google Maps. That tells me that we've got to watch out for this. We've got to watch out for the fact that what we may be having by way of AI is that ability for us to really have those neurons in your brain forming those new pathways may be getting weakened. As a matter of fact, somebody said this. You know who said this? Very recently, and this was said by none other than Gary's boss. Okay. And I think this is very true. This is very, very true. It is a fact that this is going to be something which is lacking. And that is where I think, when we need any information, we always say, there's no problem. I can always go to Google and find the information that I need from Google. I can always go to Alexa. I can go to Watson or Alexa or Siri, whoever it is. But there is one thing that these guys cannot answer. There's one thing. Tell me what's that one thing that neither Alexa, nor Google, nor Watson at this point of time can answer? What's that one question they can't answer? Sorry? No, they can't answer that, or rather they can't ask that unasked question. You still need the human being to ask that unasked question. Because no AI system today can ask you that unasked question because it's all replicating what's already done. Which is where I think the role of educators and the role of trainers and the role of teachers becomes extremely important, because fundamentally, I think we need to keep this. I think this quote goes back almost 2,000 years, but we need to go back to this 2,000-year-old quote which talks about mind not being a vessel to fill, but fire to kindle. You've got to kindle people to get that right question. So it's not just about pumping in a lot of information through multiple sources, whether it be, would it be courses or Coursera or whatever, but it's also about having people to ask the right questions, which is where that interaction or the interface with the trainer and the interface and the role of the educator becomes very, very, very critical. I'm going to keep this really quick. So my concluding thoughts on these are, because a lot has been said about this topic. So I just have 3 points to make. The first one being that, one, there's no doubt that broadly technology, and I'm not even limiting to artificial intelligence, I'm saying broadly technology has a huge role when it comes to design and delivery and learning. I think it's got enormous impact. Obviously, wherever there's a possibility that you can use technology to make learning more effective, to kind of digitize content, yes, absolutely, we should be doing that. There's no second thoughts in my mind on that particular point, very broadly. Obviously, when it comes to learning policy and education in terms of what skill sets are required, somebody like SSG or Lifelong Learning Council should know what are the skill sets that are required, what's the demand that's going to come there, what are the current level of skills that are existing in the market, what's the kind of new areas that we need to focus on. You definitely need to process the data associated with all that to help you in formulating the right kind of policy. Absolutely, you need AI to tell you what's coming next. Absolutely, you need to figure out what's the new areas to focus on. But the area where I get a little wary is when it comes to this whole concept of personalization and adaptation. I think we need to be a little cautious there. A little cautious because I think there's the tendency to make this more of a sales pitch and have people selling more to you. And I think we've got to avoid that whole concept. Sometimes I think there's this whole concept of when AI is really replicating a lot of the existing intelligence. So I sometimes call AI as augmented imperfection. I call it that with a purpose, because augmented imperfection, because it's trying to replicate some of the things that we probably don't do perfectly enough. We are not a perfect society. We don't do some things perfectly enough, and it may kind of brand us into a specific approach which probably the machine wants us to do. I'll give you a couple of examples. It could be a thing like people who typically score less than 50% in grade 5, maybe Suresh in your math exam or whatever, don't make good engineers. So if that's the profile that you've been fed, that has been fed into the system, and that's probably true in many cases, you are failing to recognize that late bloomer who's probably been motivated by somebody to become a better student. So in other words, it could just be taking an imperfect system that is inside, an imperfect data that's inside, and amplifying it enormously, thereby enabling us to make some wrong decisions. So I think that's something we've got to be very, very cautious about. And no doubt about it, AI has got huge impact in education. No doubt about it, it's got huge impact in learning and mass giving education to people who probably don't have access to that. But when it comes to personalization and adaptation, yes, it's important, but maybe with a note of caution. Maybe we don't go overboard with it and try and look at it with cautiously. So a little bit about, I don't have the benefit of, when I first came to this conference, I was probably saying, no, I don't want to go into a conference if Watson is going to be sitting next to me. It's pointless. But fortunately, they said, no, it's Sachin from IBM, not Watson. So I said, okay, this is fine. But anyway, a little bit about what we are trying to do. So Acquisent really is, I know we are all in this era of artificial intelligence, but our mission really is something different. We believe that in the era of artificial intelligence, it's still important to keep the individual at the center and enable the individual with the acumen or the intelligence and the intuition using technology. So we want to build human intuitive intelligence using technology. And that's what our mission is. And if you look at our mission, it's all about helping people to be intelligent and thrive in a world that's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jaishi. Very interesting, powerful, and inspiring presentation.